Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're talking about the one and only Zebec. Now, I just want to say shout out to you guys. You guys have been absolutely killing it with the likes, with the comments, with the views, with the support. I just want to thank you guys, right? I just want to thank you guys because you guys have been absolutely amazing. Give yourself a round of applause. Shout out to you guys. Seriously. Listen, in the last video, right, we discussed how, I was potentially looking at a pullback further down at the start of the week, right? But when we dissected the price action, we did say there is zero, and I mean zero confirmation of going down, right? The last time we looked at price, we were looking at this, right? At the 4 hour chart, we're saying, look, hey, look, there's a bottom here. There is a 4 hour bottom here. There is a 4 hour bottom here. Now, I'm not sure if we had this one just yet. I do think we did have this one as well. But practically, I was just saying that I expect for us to continuously, to go to the upside because there was zero, and I mean zero confirmation and suggestion just yet that we would, right? There was zero, zero, absolutely zero confirmation. And we can still see that that holds very, very true. Because when we continue to look at the 4 hour chart, we can see, ladies and gentlemen, boom, there is another 4 hour candle. And then the one higher is right over here. But none of them, right, at this current moment, none have been printed lower, right? They have all been printed higher than the previous ones, right? This 4 hour candle is higher than this one. This one is higher than this one. This one is higher than this one, right? So on and so on, right? And we can see, right, we do have a big 4 hour candle here. It is, roughly a 10% pump in 4 hours, but the body is very, very small, right? The body is very, very small, which indicates probably some type of selling pressure, right? And I would not be surprised if we, at the bare minimum, sell off roughly to 0.004546. Now, the reason why I say this, ladies and gentlemen, is because we talked about this last time, right? We go and look at something like the 4 hour chart, we can see that there's a lot of price action and a lot of resistance kind of in this zone, right? Kind of going into, once we kind of start heading to even lower down here, right? Once we kind of start heading into the 0.0049, practically 0.005, let's just say, that is when we start entering a big resistance zone. Okay. And we can see, right? Boom, right? It's like literally right in front of us, right? We'll draw it out very, very quickly for those that are, want to see more. We got this, we have all of this. I mean, this is, remember, these candles are 4 hours each. So when we have four taps, that's 16 hours worth of rejection, right? Boom, roughly 8 hours worth of rejection over here. Then we haven't engaged, you know, in it in a while. And then now this is the first time. And you know what? When you kind of tap into a resistance for the first time, it is always kind of expected to sell off, right? The first tap is usually some type of sell off. Now, whether it's going down here or further down, right? It doesn't really matter too much. Usually it is, a sell off. Sometimes we come back up for a second time and we fail. Usually by the third time we succeed. And if it's really stubborn, if it's really, really big, then it'll take, the fourth time, right? But even sometimes, depending on the context, how big this support and resistance is, we might even smash through the second time, right? If we pull back here and if we still show very, very bullish signs, the second time we might very well smash through. I do think though, just because of the markets, just because I expect Bitcoin still to pull back down, I do expect the second attempt to fail and for the third attempt to pump. Now, does it really matter ultimately at the end of the day if I get this prediction right or wrong? No, not really, because I make these videos every single day, right? I make them every single day. And it should be like a 2 or 3 day difference, if anything. So it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't really matter if I think it's going to happen on the second or third pump necessarily. But the most important thing is that we're getting the direction right and we're understanding why it is going up, right? Of course, you could just make a general statement. Well, you know, Bitcoin this, crypto this, of course, but you got to realize some altcoins have been bleeding now, even though it is slightly green now. You know, some coins are down, right? We can see PNG is down. We could see something like Dia has retraced over the last couple of days. You know, something like Turbo has been kind of trending downwards just a little bit. So, you know, Zebec is kind of the exception right now. And we know Zebec is kind of on its own wavelength because even back here, kind of, you know, mid to late May to the beginning of June, you know, I remember this. And not every crypto was just going nuclear. In fact, I remember Bitcoin was kind of selling off a little bit. Things were looking a little bit red, but Zebec just did its own thing, right? And of course, in recent times when Zebec was selling off, some altcoins started to pump. So Zebec is kind of on its own wavelength, which is why I do think these videos, these daily videos, are very important. Now, of course, there's still going to be some type of correlation because I do think, Bitcoin dropped 10% and Bitcoin dominance, went up 10%. I do think, of course, that Zebec will get affected ultimately, right? But in general, Zebec is kind of on its own thing. Now, we are still looking at this big annoying gap personally that I'm looking at, this 114,500, right? Very, very annoying. Very, very annoying. But I do think, it's going to get filled up within next week or two, right? We're kind of just ping ponging right now. We kind of went boom. We took out some of this area over here for Bitcoin. Now we went back up. We took out this gap. I do think we're probably going to go back to 120K and then we're going to continue to sell off personally. That's what I personally think. So, don't be surprised if Zbex sees some type of pullback, especially, ladies and gentlemen, especially that we did just hit a massive, you know, resistance line. Okay. Now, once again, um, you know, as of right now on the 4 hour, we haven't broke structure. Okay. But this is a big clue that there's going to be some type of sell off. Okay. Because technically we could go all the way down to this. But if we have a higher low on the 4 hour, right? Because it's the last relevant one, if we close like this and then we start closing like this, higher and higher, you know, there's still no confirmation that we're breaking to the downside. Okay. But just be wary that this could be the start because of the big resistance. Ladies and gentlemen, do not worry. We're going to be here updating you guys every single day. You guys have been killing it once again. I appreciate all the support. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking. Thank you for leaving the positive comments. I love you guys so, so much. Let me know what you think about Zbeck, right? Of course, you guys are probably gonna be positive about it, but we've seen some people yap a little bit. We've seen some people say some negative stuff, but for me, that is just all noise. People are always going to be negative about anything in life. And you know what? They call every single crypto a scam. But ladies and gentlemen, if you think every crypto is a scam, why are you even watching these, right? Why are you even involved in crypto if you think every crypto is a scam? I don't know. People are just funny, right? People are just funny. But 99.9% of you are amazing. 99.9% of you do have a brain. Listen, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.